Jay and Dave's podcast returns for a postseason edition. The Boise State football team won the Mountain West Conference Championship over the weekend, and now they head on into the postseason to take on Washington in a bowl game. If only we had a storyline or two just to sink our teeth into and really talk about quite a bit. There's only one of them.
I got nothing.
I got nothing either.
Cool. Well, see you guys next week.
Washington's got a tight end sitting out. Looks like he's a guy that probably go to the NFL.
Yeah.
So
your dad worked at Washington. We got that.
My dad worked at Washington for a while. Still wore Washington State gear though, might I add. That's where the tuition money went.
Yeah. When we saw it kind of stacking up, or where the Pac-12 standings were, you can thank Colorado for beating Washington to make them into this position.
Yeah.
But
and you can thank Washington State for losing to Washington for helping him get into this position. Damn it!
So it looked like it was like, okay, this is going to be the matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone just kind of was. I don't know if it's a mixed bag. If everyone was excited, I think you were kind of telling me about it. You did like a poll, and most people weren't psyched about playing Washington.
Most people aren't psyched about it, but again, I don't necessarily think it's about the name on the front of the jersey as the man that's leading the program for at least one more game.
True.
We were joking around clearly about there not being any storylines. Boise State will face Chris Petersen, and what will be Chris Petersen's final game as the University of Washington head football coach.
You can't write it any better.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This could not have ended any better. And I know that there's people listening right now that are shouting right back at the speaker they're listening to this through, saying, come on, Jay, that's dumb. But the man helped build Boise State's brand into a national power.
Yes.
And he's going to potentially end his coaching career by facing off against them.
Yeah.
Man, poetic justice to me, by the way, it totally has Boise State winning this game, right?
Right. Yeah, right. Like the monster that he created has come back to.
And not only that, it's going to be David slaying Goliath once again. And I know on paper, a lot of people think that, hey, Boise State's 12-1. They're favored. They're supposed to win this game.
They're not favored.
The people in Vegas know a lot more about this stuff than anybody out there when it comes to setting correct betting lines, because that's how they fund the trillions of lights of Las Vegas and take a little bit of cash out of Dave's pocket every time he goes there, or a lot of bit of cash. Whatever's in there is what I'm saying. Whatever cash is in there, they take from you. No, I'm kidding. But they have the Huskies as a 3-point favorite. Washington's 7-5, Boise State's 12-1. They have the Huskies as a 3-point favorite.
I don't think Boise State would have lost in Boulder, but whatever. I don't think they would have. It was surprising. I mean, I don't know if you can weigh it where it's like, the emotional side of it. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of that for Washington wanting to send them off on the right way. Mm-hmm. But Boise State also, do they think that, they didn't get the Cotton Bowl, so they're going to be disappointed?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I personally think that, if we say that the Washington players are going to come out inspired, I think the Boise State's players are going to come out every bit as inspired to play for their head coach as the Husky players will for their outgoing head coach. And, Bryan Harsin had some very direct words. I would say he vaguely talked about a few things this week, but we definitely knew where he was going with it, and we're definitely going to jump into that later on in the show. But the guy wants to see his program continue to move forward in many areas, and we're going to get to that. But
what helps that is winning these sorts of games.
It means money,
and that's where Chris Petersen brought Boise State to.
Yep.
They beat Power 5 teams. So I think that whether they're playing Washington or Washington State or Arizona State or Cal or whoever, there still would have been a driving force for Boise State, because this is where they built their reputation upon.
Yes.
And they had a run where they didn't have much success. They beat Florida State this year. Mm-hmm. That righted the ship. They can continue that when Bryan Harsin talks about wanting to go to the next level or whatever like that. Guess what helps? Finishing the season, 13-1 and beating a team like Washington to end the year goes a long way.
And I know, we had fans that weighed in immediately on social media. We also conducted a poll on the News at 10 that night. And again, getting back to it, it does seem like there's a majority of people out there that aren't super stoked about this matchup. I mean, some are even saying that they're not going to watch it. To that, I would say, really? Really?
I see some fans that were like, that Boise State was playing against some community college in Kansas, and it was on a crappy 56K dial-up live stream. People would still watch it.
Absolutely. So I'm not buying that.
And guess what?
But
a lot more casual people are going to be watching this game than usual because of that matchup.
Reading a couple, every single website out there starts to rank bowls 1 through 41 in terms of competitiveness or best matchups. I think it was CBS Sports had this the 8th ranked bowl game in their lineup, and it was the top game or top matchup that's not a New Year's Six matchup. So I mean, people are thinking really, really highly of this game, I'd have to say. And another reason, or another point that I wanted to bring up is that if you can. Get over the fact that Chris Petersen's coaching against Boise State. Look at the product on the field that's going to be squaring off against each other. Again, I mentioned it. Washington's a 3-point favorite in this game. So throw the records out the window because they clearly don't really matter. And again, these are educated people that are very good at making money setting these lines. But one other thing I wanted to add is I know some people said Washington State or even Cal, like that would have been a better matchup and you wouldn't have had to deal with this Chris Petersen storyline. I'm fairly confident that Boise State would have been favored against Cal or Washington State.
Probably.
Case in point, Air Force is a 2.5-point favorite over Washington State. Boise State beat the Falcons by double digits earlier this year.
Right.
And Cal, their offense, it hasn't been anything to call home about. Their defense has been pretty good, but I still think that Boise State would have been favored in that game. So if you want the best competitive game for what this stage can offer, you probably got it.
Yeah, this is probably the best one because Arizona State was in it last year, so they weren't going to come. So those other options you mentioned were the only possibilities.
Yeah.
And this was, in terms of just throw out all the other stuff, this was the best option. I think. I mean, Cal would have been interesting, like you said.
It would have been fun.
Their OC's just leaving too.
Yep.
But
there would have been the one thing I would have liked about the Cal matchup personally is that we could have gone down there, covered the game, we could have drawn connections that would have been fun to talk about. But when it's,
and they never played each other.
Yeah, it's never played each other. But when it's such a powerful figure like Chris Petersen and relating him to Boise State, and it's his last game, it almost is a little bit too much. But I go back to what we said at the beginning of the show here, Dave. Like, there's no other way for this to end. Yeah,
and it is hard sometimes, like honestly, to really encapsulate what this is. Beyond as you laid it out earlier. Just Chris Petersen coming back to the place that he built, but there's so many different tentacles with it. There's so many guys on the staff that were here at some way, shape, or form.
Scooter Huff, Jimmy Lake, the guy that's going to take over when Petersen leaves, he was here. That was Pete Kwiatkowski.
And they first and him and Pete first connected here.
Yeah,
first time he worked for Chris Petersen was here for 2 years. So there's just many angles for it, and almost to the point where if you try to do one thing on it like that, it would be too much. You just got to pick your spots, and that's what I'm trying to do with what I'm writing. It took me like 2 days to be like, well, what's an angle that's interesting that maybe won't be done to death, but that's part of the joy of covering this game.
Yep.
And also the fact that I don't think I'm going to write about it, but Chris Petersen did beat Washington in the Las Vegas Bowl before.
And the game-winning field goal off the right foot of
Michael Frasina. The great Michael Frasina. I think after that game, Murph asked him, said, "Hey, I don't think you won't have to buy a drink for yourself in Boise anymore." And Frasina goes, "I don't drink, but I'll take a lemonade." It was the most kicker thing I've ever heard in my life, and bless that kid. So, and also his license plate said "Kickin' 4-3" on it. I remember that. Yeah.
What about PATs?
Yeah, you know what? He didn't really care about those.
Yeah, forget that. You're right, though. That was
12.
That was 2012. It was actually Chris Petersen's last bowl game.
Yes.
As a member of the Boise State coaching staff, because he didn't coach in the 2013 bowl game.
Right. No one
How
did.
about that? So his last bowl game at Boise State was against Washington, and his last bowl game at Washington will be at against Boise State. That's nuts. Like, what?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, no, it is pretty weird. Yeah.
Huh.
I think that Vegas Bowl, I don't know, maybe it's just me. That Vegas Bowl is the one, they've been, to 4 of them. I think that one is the one that gets lost in the shuffle the most.
Yeah, definitely.
But,
well, you know why? Who started a quarterback? I think Bronco Nation tries to just skip over that era.
Yeah, Joe Southwick. Yeah.
I want to say Holden Huff had 2 touchdowns that
He
game.
might have. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go out there and say Holden Huff had a big game that day. One thing that's a little bit different this year is a little bit of a later kickoff, not only in terms of the calendar, but just in terms of the time of day. The way bowl season fell this year, the Vegas Bowl is still one of the earlier games this year.
It's on the second day.
But it's on the second day of the bowl season, which isn't until the 21st. And we found out that this week that the commissioner of the MAC, I believe, John Steinbreck, I can't remember exactly.
Great author.
Yeah. Maybe that's why I'm getting it. I swear his last name's Steinbreck.
Okay.
Either way, I think he petitioned to have them make a special exception and move the bowl calendar up one day this year because
because they have two teams in bowl games on Friday.
Yeah, and so
I didn't know that.
There has to be a certain amount of days between the end of of basically championship week and the beginning of postseason, and I mean if they don't start till the 21st, and then everything's got to get bounced back a day, and almost every single bowl game would then be after Christmas basically. So they even had to petition, I believe, to move it up one day this year. But
I like having those two games the day before Boise State's bowl game. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to be in Las Vegas. So
I didn't want to point out the obvious there.
I love covering that bowl game. It's the best. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah.
It's selfishly as media people, it's the best bowl game to cover because of
we know what we're doing.
Boise State's history.
There's bright lights and easy distractions. And
it's well organized and. People always give you crap about, hey, you cover the Hawaii Bowl. There's nothing to do in Honolulu at night.
John Steinbreck.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, my bad, yo. My bad. The MAC commissioner. But he's a really jovial guy, by the way. Look at Potato Bowl matchup, Nevada, Ohio.
He wrote the lesser-known book, The Cherries of Rage. Once
again, Dave's trivia knowledge and jokes about trivia knowledge. Wait, what'd you call it? The cherries of rage?
Yeah, instead of grapes of wrath. Sorry.
I like it.
We have fun on this podcast.
Do you think somebody actually wrote a book knockoff like that? Probably not. I don't know.
It's like Larry Potter.
Maybe that's what you could do.
Yeah. That'll be that, like those that studio that makes the movies that are like similar to like the big blockbuster it's coming out and it's like direct to DVD and it basically just tricks people into like buying it or renting it.
Yep.
That would be mine with books.
Wait, what'd I get? Dang it. I really do like this bowl game, and another reason why fans. I mean, I don't feel like I'm obligated to get you excited, but one reason why I'm excited, and probably a reason why Dave is excited, is that this bowl game isn't a possibility for Boise State moving forward.
True.
This is the last year that the Mountain West has a bowl tie into the Las Vegas Bowl. Next year, the bowl game will move on over to that big, beautiful, fancy NFL stadium, and it'll be a Pac-12 and an SEC tie-in.
Yep.
The Mountain West will then shift their conference champion to a game in LA, which will be played at that multi-billion-dollar new venue that looks like a spaceship, which will be cool and it'll be different. But it's not Vegas.
It's not, man. It's not. And that's the thing too is like, I mean, part of the reason that the Vegas Bowl makes sense is it's usually a time of year where there's not very many people coming in. So the hotel rooms are really cheap and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's so close to Christmas that not a lot of people are like, let's go to Vegas for Christmas.
Yeah. And it's like I said, the Hawaii Bowl, everyone will be like, oh, you're in Honolulu. It's like you're working all day. And then at night, yeah, you probably have free time.
A little bit of free time.
You don't go to Honolulu for that. You do go to Vegas for that. So that's why it is the best. And it's before Christmas, and it's great.
And not only is it the last year that this is a bowl tie-in with the Mountain West, but it's the last time that Boise State will travel to Las Vegas for a game until 2023, I believe.
Yes.
That's when UNLV gets back on the schedule. Because Boise State played at UNLV next year. UNLV will come here
this season, 2020.
Yeah, and then they take the cycle off.
The 2 years off, and then
back again. So if you could follow that, that's what all this meant.
Marcus Arroyo's fourth season,
or
new coach. Yeah.
A lot of coaching changes, by the way, in the Mountain West. maybe we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show too. But I really do think that there's plenty of intrigue, and it all starts for us on Tuesday, and that's the first opportunity to likely talk with Chris Petersen. I'm super interested to see how much media he does down there.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, when I say duck in media, I don't say that like he doesn't know how to deal with us. Clearly Chris Petersen does, but that man is all about limiting distractions, and it will basically be impossible to sidestep this storyline because it's going to be a distraction. I mean, I don't care. It can be motivation for his team. It can be motivation for Boise State, but people are going to talk about it, and it's not just local people. No, this will be the obvious storyline that national people cling to as well.
Yes, it'll be everybody, and that's true. And I can't wait till I see him, and if I get him for a second, I'm going to be like, hey, so is this awkward for you? Because everyone's going to ask that same question.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it tongue in cheek, and I hope he gets it. I think he will. But that's always been, but also limiting distractions and stuff like that. It's just funny. I was going through an old story. I think USA Today did it before they were in the CFP about people here still rooting for him and for Washington. And there was a line in there that was really interesting to me that I missed the first time, and now it makes sense. Where they were talking about when they opened, like when the indoor facility opened up and all that stuff. There were like locks on the doors that. Back in the day, like boosters could like come by and just hang out and watch practice and talk to people, and that
really?
But just think about that. Just think about like what that means, right?
Yeah.
You know the locks on the indoor. We can't get in unless someone lets us in.
Yeah.
Blameyer, same thing.
Huh.
You take it how you will, but that there was kind of this conscious like literal walling yourself off. And I read that story years ago, but it just connected when I was reading it, and I'm like, I think that's true, and that has impacted, I think, a lot of things around Boise State with the football program about them kind of taking pride in being like Fort Knox, and I think that translates into Chris Petersen's personality about limiting distractions in any way, shape, or form, whether it's us dingbats walking around or boosters or whoever.
Quit calling me names, but whatever.
But anyway, I digress, but I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of revisiting some of that stuff.
Where it all kind of started, as you just kind of mentioned.
Yep,
so I do think it's going to be interesting. Washington's going to be without their leading receiver, and he's like a hybrid tight end, big physical guy that does have a future at the next level.
Hunter Bryant.
But they don't have the playmakers that they kind of had in the past.
Yeah, and if anything's been really criticized there, it's the offense, right? And
then another former Bronco running that offense, Bush Hamden,
right? And you said Scooters there, and Keith Bonifaz, and
I think their O-line's been pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bonifaz. Jeez.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Everywhere you turn, but. Yeah, and I think that who knows what a factor that's going to be. As far as we know at the moment, Ezra Cleveland, Curtis Weaver, those two have not made their intent known, if they've even made a decision. I think with it coming up so close that if they're going to, I would imagine they're both going to play. And that's been a big Bryan Harsin thing. He hates it when those guys don't play. I would venture to guess, since we haven't heard from anything about those guys, that they probably will play regardless.
Well, hey,
Madison played last year.
One thing about playing, not playing and stuff, if you are Leonard Fournette and you play for LSU and you've been on national television and everybody's talked about you all year and you choose to sit out your bowl game, that's one thing. But if you are a Boise State football player, I mean, this is ABC, primetime, Kirk Herbstreit on the call. You have a great chance to really grow your brand and expose yourself to, help shoot up the draft boards.
Like Van Der Esch?
And that's exactly where I'm going with it. I mean, you talked, when we were covering late and around NFL draft time, so many people pointed to the Las Vegas Bowl. I mean, more than any other game that he ever played in, everybody wanted to talk about the Las Vegas Bowl and the evaluation process. He was the defensive MVP of that game. He was lights out against Oregon. And I've had people go as far as saying, like, that game elevated him into becoming a first-round draft pick. Now, he also really shined at all the postseason workouts and the combine and all that stuff. But I think that was the game that, like, really made people take him seriously as – okay, this kid's not just going to come out early, but he's probably going to be a first-round draft pick.
Yeah, and you wonder if that's similar opportunities for those other guys.
Mm-hmm. And I will say this. One thing about it when you play in the Las Vegas Bowl is there usually is a condensed time between the bowl game and the conference championship game that you played in that season. And so it doesn't really kind of leave too much time for an announcement prior to the game either.
Right.
And you talk limiting distractions and all that stuff. That's what these coaches really emphasize. You remember when Ajayi came out early, that was when they played a New Year's Six game. So there was almost a whole month, 3.5 weeks or so between games. There was time for Jay to make his announcement. He was leaving Boise State early and entering the NFL draft, put it behind, and still prepare for the bowl game to where it was not really a distraction by the time they got down there to Arizona. Now, such a short window. I mean, this is just like a bye week. That's all this is.
Pretty much, that is what it is.
There's exactly 2 weeks between the Mountain West Conference Championship game and the Las Vegas Bowl. So this is just a bye week. That's why I don't expect us to – I would be surprised if one of them made an announcement before the game.
Yeah, probably. Even like, I mean – yeah, I mean, Madison didn't until after the one last year. McNichols did it the day before the Cactus Bowl. Who knows if that was a distraction for himself or others? But
and with Jeremy, just to retell the story that we've probably already told 100 times, he made it public the day before the bowl game, but he knew for 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
I think he said it was like after the Air Force game. They had lost Air Force.
Yeah.
And
they didn't play in the conference championship that year.
Yeah, and he said it was like the day after or something like that.
Yeah, so he basically, I mean, it was probably a month. Yeah, it was probably a month before he actually let us know, and we talked to them in between, and we were told that he didn't make a decision.
His mom was like, no, I haven't.
I don't mean to be too critical, but that was just a unique circumstance, I think. Every time since then, it's just been handled a little differently.
Yeah.
And
maybe they learned a lesson.
I mean, Jay's the only one that's had like the press conference called for him, right?
Yep. Because Correa was after.
He was after the Poinsettia Bowl.
McNichols day before him.
Leighton just kind of sent out a tweet.
It was the day of their signing day.
Yeah. Okay.
Because remember, like the way the schedule fell, they played in the bowl game on a Saturday, and the signing day was Wednesday.
And that was when the calendar was different to where bowl season started pretty early.
Yep.
Not a lot of attention, fanfare, I guess, for some of the recent guys. It's been pretty subtle announcements. Jay's the only one that's got a press conference called for him. I wish they do it. I mean,
it would be great.
I'd be fine with it.
It'd be great. Get it out of the way so we don't have to bother them.
Just don't do it between the 25th and 30th.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yes, we do have vacation planned.
I'm just waiting. What would be great is like after the game, if like, hey, they're on the podium and it's like they have something to tell you guys.
Don't you just want that moment? Like, but I'm out of here. I'm going to the NFL.
Hell
and
yeah.
There's confetti flying everywhere, and they just won a bowl game.
The best one, you know who did that? Josh Allen.
Oh,
after the Potato Bowl, Heather Cox asked him, and he's like, I guess I am going to the NFL. That's how he did it.
I think that's cool.
That's how he did it. I mean, it was like on the podium after they won the Potato Bowl.
Here's the deal. He knew at that moment. It's not like these kids are just going to be like, I'm going. You know what I mean? Like,
then afterward, you see his look on his face where he's like,
oh no, did I say the wrong thing? They know.
That's how he did it. I think a lot of
it would be pretty cool to just let him like live in that moment. I mean, like even when Leighton's hoisting the his defensive MVP trophy above his head down in Las Vegas 2 years ago, you're looking at this guy being like, oh, he's gone.
And I remember I talked to Avalos, and Avalos was like, hey, if he leaves, they're going to get a hell of a linebacker. If he comes back, we're going to have a hell of a linebacker coming back or something like that. So it was just kind of, I don't know. I think he probably had a good idea too. But speaking of coaching staffs, I have to say, you and I did talk about this after they announced Las Vegas Bowl, right? We sat on like the sidewalk talking for like a good solid 20 minutes.
It's every week we kind of have a practice run at the podcast. We intentionally or not intentionally. We
stay on the sidewalk and look forward at a point like it's the camera, and then people walking by are like, "What the hell's wrong with those two?" But we did talk about this quite a bit, and I said this is the reason that we wanted to do this podcast to begin with, and why we enjoy it, because we do talk about and talk like this to each other most days of the week.
Yep.
But we did talk about after, so during his press conference for Las Vegas Bowl, Harsin, I wouldn't say downplayed the Chris Petersen angle, but he tried a little bit. But the things that really stood out to me were two other facets. I asked him about being disappointed if they were close to being in the Cotton Bowl and not getting it. not even really necessarily being discussed by most people. I'll take away Twitter and whatever because that's a different beast. But I mean, the larger conversation, it was just a foregone conclusion if Memphis won that they were in.
Mm-hmm.
And not even debating about if Boise State should even be in the mix. So I wondered about that. And his response was very candid about not getting the sort of promotion that the American got, whether it was from the conference commissioner, other facets. And he did, and he said, we don't do a good enough job. He mentioned the university a little bit too. And I'm not sure just how much of a difference that would have made this year in particular, just because I think what really boiled down to me was literally the quality of said conference, not the PR push, anything like that. It's the fact that Memphis beat 4 teams that at one point were ranked in the CFP.
Yeah.
Boise State beat none. That's what it boiled down to, in my opinion, and I think why most people probably said, okay, I can understand why Memphis. But I think it speaks to a larger thing with Bryan Harsin about like just Boise State's in this position all the time. That has to be appreciated, not just like, well, they're always good. Maybe just be like they should, you know.
I have a tough time arguing that, Dave.
Oh,
I really do. And, you know, one thing I do want to add to this is that the week leading up to the Mountain West Conference Championship game, we got Kurt Apson, we got, the Mountain West Conference Commissioner, Craig Thompson, and both of them at separate times said this isn't about comparing Boise State and Memphis. It's about comparing it's not about comparing Boise State and Cincinnati. It's about Boise State and Memphis. But within all of that, it really was about comparing Boise State and Cincinnati.
Yes, it was.
Because for some reason, Cincinnati, despite the fact that they had 2 losses and Boise State only had 1, there was definitely a level of concern if Cincinnati pulled the upset that they would still jump Boise State. And we talked about this a lot last week on the show. And if you looked at what was ranked behind Cincinnati, I think the gap between when Cincinnati was at 20 and Boise State was at 19 was bigger than most people were giving it credit for. Because they weren't going to rank an 8-4 USC team ahead of a 10-2 Cincinnati team going into conference championship week. But when they were all talking about that, I mean, that's the real argument here. There should never be a point in time where potentially a 2-loss American Athletic Conference team would jump a 1-loss Boise State team. And I know that they were trying to hammer this is about Boise State and Memphis, but really it was about Boise State and Cincinnati, and why is this so close?
It was trying to preemptively get ahead of the discussion because, God, could you imagine if Cincinnati had won? No one would be talking about them winning the Mountain West Championship. Nobody. Everyone that whole entire night would have been freaking out until noon the next day about, is Cincinnati going to pass them?
Yep.
And because it's a committee, there's no way to know.
We were standing on the field as Boise State was beginning to celebrate, and that Cincinnati-Memphis game was still going on, and Cincinnati had the lead, and then Memphis took the lead, and Cincinnati's coming back down the field, and they got all the way down near the red zone with a chance to win this thing.
And we're all checking our phones.
Cell service is bad, and I'm like, update. And at the same time, going through your mind is like, how do you approach this? Because you're naturally going to want to say Boise State's going to the Cotton Bowl, but you could not have definitively said that. So we really would have, amongst all the excitement and stuff, we really would have had to put the brakes on because we could not have said that even if Cincinnati, a 2-loss team, won. We weren't for sure that a 1-loss Boise State team was going to hold them off. Which
is so weird. I mean, this. I tried to lay out the case that this was the best coaching job Bryan Harsin has done. This is one of the better Boise State teams in a long time. If we really want to look at it, this decade for sure, if we talk about, since 2011, I guess. But the fact that Cincinnati was even in the mix was just stunning. And I think that's kind of the sort of thing that Harsin was talking about too.
Yeah.
And so that conversation ended up being moot, but who knows in future times. The way that things are shaking out, I'd be extremely surprised if anyone was ahead of Boise State the preseason next year.
Next year?
For the G5.
Yeah. Well, another thing that's sad about it too, and you can't punish the Memphis players for this. I know where you're going with that. Mm-hmm. But the fact that they don't even have their head coach that led them there, and they're getting to play in a New Year's Six bowl game, I think it's unfortunate. You know what? That's not even that goes beyond Memphis. I feel like and maybe this could never happen, and this might be just a short-sighted comment, Dave, but, I just think like the NCAA should have a mandate. Like, you can't officially hire coaches until after postseason play is completed. And I know like that throws a wrench in the signing period, especially now because there's an early signing period.
I think that's the big part.
And that's a big part. But I just think it's unfair to like now these kids that they work so hard and now they committed their lives to this coach basically, and Norvell's earned the opportunity.
Yeah.
Like that's a separate discussion, but it's just kind of unfortunate when you have Boise State 12-1, their head coach, who, as he told us this last week, bleeds blue. What was it? Bleeds more blue than anybody. He was something about bleeding a lot of blue.
I don't think many people bleed blue more than I do.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it was. And
well, I mean that perfectly dovetails into the second part of what I was saying was interesting. Yeah. I asked him about, hey, he was talking about the 2020 schedule, how that's different than anyone they've ever had.
Very competitive.
Because Florida State's coming up here.
Yep.
They have 7 home games total.
Yep. 7 home games next year.
Yeah.
7 home games.
Not bad for us.
And they don't have to, it's not any like the weird Hawaii stuff either. Like the way that they just managed it, right?
Well, you mean like 13 games?
Yeah.
Right. Though they have to go to Hawaii and Huntington, West Virginia, but
yeah.
But Harsin, I did ask him like about, there's gonna be coaching rumors and all that stuff, and I said, I mentioned he was talking about 2020 schedule, so I was like, are you going to be here? He didn't say 100% certainty yes, but he did talk about how he had hit a point where he talked about he wants them to keep moving forward, right? If they're stagnant, he doesn't want to be a part of it, and I think to him to say that was really eye-opening because. I don't see there's a malaise, but like when I talk about when the expectation here is 10 wins, even if they win 12, which they have this year, there's still kind of like still a pretty good season. I think there really needs to be, whether it's from the bottom on up, from the fans to the administration, everybody, just how exceedingly rare that is, right? And if you want to aspire for more with those wins, they got to find a way to do it. That's what he's trying to say. That they're still going to win a lot of games.
Yep.
But what is next? Is it facilities? Is it more money for the coaches so they don't have to have turnover? Is it scheduling stuff? Whatever it is, that they're going to always be winning these games. And if there's a part where you're just like, yep, and that's it, then eventually something's going to happen, and you're not going to be playing in those New Year's Six games anymore.
Yeah. Boise State has forever been known as a program at the cutting edge. And you just kind of feel like over the last couple of seasons, I'm not talking about X's and O's, Dave.
Yes, I know where you're going with that.
I'm talking about a bigger picture. A program encompasses a whole lot more than X's and O's, play callings, wins and losses. It's a lot more than that. And you kind of look around and it does feel like it has been a little stagnant over the last couple of years. And man, I don't think I'm interpreting any of this the wrong way. Look at Bryan Harsin's tweets from each of the last 3 mornings. It is all about his one today was most dangerous sentence in the world or something is because we've always done it that way or something. Yeah. I'm totally paraphrasing it. What he put out there sounds way more intellectual than what I just said. But he is hammering a very calm and consistent message right now.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
And I'd say good for him.
Yeah. And I think it's the way I put it in my story the day after is really did feel like to me after the 2010 season when Stanford, almost got Chris Petersen. It felt like that to me. Though he was, about to have a senior class with Kellen and all those guys, I think he still felt like, hey, what is next?
Yeah.
Where can they, quote unquote, take it to the next level? And they did.
And I don't mean, I am not trying to feed the rumor mill. I literally have zero concrete information on anything. But anybody with common sense can look around at some of the positions that were open out there and some of the hires that were made, and you kind of look over at what that man at the Boise State football facility has accomplished, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, I don't want to feed any rumor mills, but I'm assuming Bryan Harsin could have been in a very good position for just about any big coaching opportunity that was available this offseason. But he's here.
Right.
And from what I took from the bowl game press conference on Sunday was that he really likes being here, but it's time to fight for more for the program. As you were saying, Chris Petersen got it at one point in time in the G. Blaemeyer football complex. Dan Hawkins got it at one point in time in the form of the indoor practice facility. Somewhere sandwiched in between was the Stickle Sky Center. So, I mean, like, you're right, Dave. It felt like this was one of those moments where how do they move it forward? Because teams around the conference have caught up.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
And this is what we're talking about on the sidewalk, too. After the press conference on Sunday, we revisited it. But, I mean, it's really true. Think about when Boise State got the Gene Blaemeyer football complex, Dave. They're not only pointing towards tradition over everybody else in the Mountain West, but they're pointing towards facilities. We got the best, we got the baddest. They can't necessarily do that anymore. I mean, like, sure, like, in their minds, go for it. Sell it like crazy. Because in your facility, you can show off a whole lot more rings and conference championships than anybody else that's your competitor. But then, again, that's more getting back to tradition than actual facility, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I remember when that thing opened. I speak from my own point of view. At that point, the school I went to, a Pac-12 school, formerly a Big 8 school, Big 12 school, that dwarfed what Colorado had. Like, it was like, holy crap, look what they're doing. Now everyone else has done a lot. Utah State, we were just there. They did their whole thing. They renovated the stadium. And they had added that facility before. Wyoming, the high altitude one.
$66 million, I believe.
Yeah, they have that.
Colorado State has a brand new stadium.
Right.
Which, I wish we knew the guy that designed that thing or helped build it, you know?
Yeah.
Get him on here and ask him a few questions.
We do the parents edition one day. just prod my pops about that stadium but like,
does he do any like pro bono work or?
Yeah, he's gonna be like, hey, just let me know what Boise State needs. I'll see what we can do. But right there, and that's in the most obvious way, right? Capital improvements. We haven't seen them. I mean, when was the screen put in?
I was trying to look this up the other day.
That was like 6 years ago?
I think the funding or the proposal, was right after the completion of the Gene Blaemeyer football complex in 2013.
Yeah, to put this screen.
I think that the very first, I looked this up the other day and now I can't remember. It was either the start of the 14th season or the start of the 15th season that they actually had it up ready to go and a part of like the game day atmosphere.
Yeah.
But again, that was like the completion, not the concept, not the approval, not the money, the completion of it. And so like, in order to have something that's finished, Dave, you have to have a concept. You have to have funding, and then you have to have time to build it. So it's not like if they come up with a grand idea about something, it's going to happen like that overnight. Like there's a process to this.
Yeah.
And right now, there is nothing concrete in the works.
Yes.
And there needs to be.
And I think for Harsin, he did specifically mention to us, one in particular, east side of the stadium, which I'm sure people listening to this would agree with because probably quite a few of you sit over there. That's an obvious one.
It is, man, the game day experience is all about comfort and entertainment and all that stuff. And I do think that Boise State increased their game day atmosphere and production value. The guys over there in the video department have done an incredible job. But you can't, I mean, I don't even know how much polish you can put on the east side of the stadium right now. I mean, it's not great.
Right. Yeah,
I mean, it's not.
There's not much you can.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. There's nothing they can do by 2020 to really gussy that up, is there? No, because their plan, which we have talked about on here and with Kurt Apsey for years, frankly, is kind of adding more luxury type stuff over there, renovating it, maybe getting rid of the troughs in the bathrooms. I don't know.
I mean, they still have troughs. The Kingdom had troughs.
I remember being a kid and going to the Kingdom.
That was like the first time you were exposed to them. I'm like, Dad, what is this? And you're like, it was back in the days.
I remember being like,
it was like back in the days where you're like eye level with the two, basically, and you're like, stand back a little, aim up. Wait, what? Sorry.
Anybody that grew up around there knows the pain. But he's mentioned that stuff. Obviously, I think he talked a little bit about budgets. He talked about maybe an assistant salary pool going up. Good on him for saying that, right?
Yeah.
But
a guy that sounds like he's ready to fight for the program that he really loves.
And it felt like a turning point to me. I think it was. But the question is, and I've asked this before, and to be frank with everyone, never really got any great answers. What is next? I've asked that multiple times.
Yeah.
I asked it to Bryan Harsin after the press conference. He at least gave me a concrete answer. So you're like, oh my God, like somebody, right?
Yeah.
I'm seeing others.
I mean, I guess his was the desire of what you'd want to be next.
Right.
Or,
and that's what I think, because they have the football facility. You think about some of those things, the tangible, concrete capital improvements. There's not many obvious ones. They have most of the bells and whistles. What is the other thing? What is it? You know what I mean? Like that's what I wonder. Is it pumping more money in it? Is it, adding to the recruiting budget or whatever it is? There has to be something. And Bryan Harsin, I think, has ideas of what he wants it to be, what is feasible, what isn't. And I think that this is not to try to overstate it, but it really is. It feels like a turning point. And I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, it feels like a turning point, or it feels like it's time to step on the springboard again, because people are starting to grab at your ankles, and you need to elevate.
Yeah, because that facility's 6 years old.
Yeah, I mean, even that's kind of crazy. Like, it's not like it still looks great.
It still looks. Every time we go in, it's always like, man, that's pretty nice.
Clean, beautiful, bright. I mean, vibrant, whatever you want to call it. The latest equipment. But if you think about it, it is like it is 6 years old. Next year it'll be 7 years old, and when you kind of think about some of this stuff, like, that actually is dated now,
Oh, in this world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or at least it's definitely distanced you to the point where it's time to do something else.
Yeah.
I think you can kind of see the writing on the wall, that there have been people that have tried to catch up, and luckily Boise State still has an incredible tradition they can lean on. They are the winningest football program in college football history. They have that to lean on right now, but in order to stay there, I really do think that they believe that they're going to need some stuff. And, we focus so much on the Mountain West schools, Dave, but there are also Pac-12 schools that Boise State competes with year in and year out for recruits. And, you said that your school, when the Gene Blaemeyer football complex was built at Boise State, that dwarfed the facilities that Colorado had at that point in time. That's no longer the case.
No, it's
my
very
alma
nice
mater built a $60+ million football-only facility since that Gene Blaemeyer football complex was built or finished. So I mean, like, it goes beyond the Mountain West, and those are schools where in order to get some of these recruits, I mean, like, you got to convince them in every way, shape, and form that they're going to get a better experience at Boise State than they are at a Pac-12 school that has more money, that's going to play, in bigger stadiums in front of bigger crowds. Like, you got to sell them on just about everything, and that includes facilities and stadium and crowds and obviously tradition, but it's a battle out there, man.
When we were at Oregon State in 2016, weren't they doing something too?
Oregon State's been working on their stadium. I'm almost positive.
Yeah, I know they were working on something.
Yeah,
and because we had to go through and go in that old ass
No, you're exactly right. Now. Yep, you're exactly right.
So they were doing something. I mean, and those are the sorts of schools that they're competing with.
Yep.
Not take out the Utah States and Wyoming. I mean, those are the ones that they're really competing with.
I guess the way that you can phrase this too is, like, if there's a recruit deciding between those two schools, though, the Pac-12 schools can basically say, well, we got more money. Do you want a bed in your locker, because we can offer that to you, where Boise State can't, or something like that. Well, that's why you need to keep up, because if those types of schools lose that kind of recruiting advantage over Boise State, what recruiting advantage do they have? Because it's certainly not wins and losses or conference championships.
Correct. Right. You got to sell them on a dream.
Yeah. Really, you do. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. I walked away from that press conference thinking about, or just thinking as much as I have about any press conference this season.
In a while for me.
Yeah.
If you think about it, how many press conferences have we done where, for the most part, they're pretty rote. They're pretty rote. It's pretty like, yeah. That one was eye-opening, and I thank Bryan Harsin for it, because I was like, oh no. I went into it going like, well, everyone else is going to write the same thing as me. Then he did that. I'm like, this is fun. But I mean, again, real quick, you mentioned competing at Mountain West schools. Did all the openings? No, Fresno State hasn't got there. New Mexico still hasn't either. I know.
I don't know when that one's going to get announced. So Fresno State, decent job, good recruiting area. Don't know what they can offer financially. It's not what some of the other Mountain West schools can offer.
Tedford had a pretty decent deal. I know he was older, so maybe they had to. But I mean, like, I know it seems like Kalen DeBoer is going to be the guy, but it's been 2 weeks.
Now, yeah.
He's the OC at Indiana, and he was the OC at Fresno. New Mexico, Gonzalez, the DC.
What's the acronym they use at Indiana? LEO. It's LEO. What is it?
Is it the linebacker position?
No. No. It's like their motto for the program. Everyone. Gosh. I'll look it up.
You can look it up. I think Danny Gonzalez, the DC from Arizona State, looks like the guy at New Mexico. He went there. UNLV hired Marcus Arroyo, a guy who I thought if Bryan Harsin never left might be a candidate here if Boise State wanted to reach outside of their tree. I know not all the Oregon fans love him as the OC there, but and then Steve Adazio at Colorado State.
You know what a great tweet. I mean,
maybe save this one, but that's not inspiring.
Yeah, I pride myself in kind of finding cool stat tweets. Excuse me. The one that Prater sent out this week when he was comparing Steve Adazio's record over the last 7 years to Colorado State's.
And they're almost the same.
And it was like almost identical year for year. And Colorado State is 46 and 44 over that span. And Boston College with Steve Adazio was 44 and 44. I meant to acknowledge that tweet. I was setting up Christmas lights and I was distracted for a moment, but it was a good tweet.
That 10-win CSU season helped put them a little bit over.
Yep.
But, I mean, look at these hires. I mean, I like Arroyo, and I think UNLV has put money into their program. I mean, there's another one, the Fertitta Complex.
Well, and they're moving into a brand new NFL stadium. Yeah. That is going to be an advantage. That's why, that job, man, you just see the way that the sports scene is beginning to boom in Las Vegas. Yeah. That job, for years, I don't understand or haven't understood why they haven't been able to sustain some better success there. If they don't moving forward, it's really going to be a head scratcher because they will have the best stadium in the Mountain West.
Yeah. And Arroyo has a bunch of Western experience. He's from Northern California. I like that. I like that hire for them. And like I even said, I've always maybe thought about potentially here. So, hell, if UNLV can get that sort of a guy, go for it. So there's new. I mean, a third of the coaches in the conference are going to be new. Come media day time. So that's a little interesting. And again, usually with that stuff, there's a rebranding of like a team and trying to push for more or whatever. And I'm sure it's part of what Harsin's talking about. And his old pal Eli Drinkwitz going to Missouri, my fellow Diet Dew dog.
Yeah. Does he like Mountain Dew?
He loves Diet Dew.
Really?
Look it up.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know that.
I definitely mentioned it to him once, I think, when he was here. But going to Missouri for 4 a year. That's that's more than twice what Bryan Harsin makes.
Good for him, man. Good for him.
Think about that.
In 6 years at it. That's a life changer right there.
Yeah.
And he rose through the ranks very quickly.
He was a 1 year head coach.
App State.
So.
Who's gotten that job yet?
Yeah, Sean Clark, the O-line coach.
Okay.
And he went there and stuff.
That's a good job to have.
Yeah, that's a very good job to have. I mean, good on Eli for keeping it up after Satterfield left. But yeah, I think that hire was really, really intriguing.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people were just connecting the dots with Harsin in Missouri, that they might be interested in him.
By the way, should we bring this up now too? Sure.
Did you figure out what Leo means?
I'm on the. I'm getting closer right now. We had a number of people that continued to kind of ask us questions of, are you going to ask Coach Harsin about certain jobs and stuff like that?
I'm glad you bring that up.
Unless you have something that's concrete, it's just not a good idea to do that. It just isn't.
Didn't you compare it that you have like one bullet in the chamber?
Yeah, you do. And if you use it, then you are going to be on the run. I mean, that's just the way that it is. You're defenseless. And so if you're going to use the bullet, you better strike the bullseye.
And that's why I did it at the end of that press conference. And at that point, reports had come out.
Even the way that you asked it though was.
I didn't say why didn't you take the Missouri job, or did Missouri call you?
Yeah, it was a crafty way to do it. It was, But, I think that a lot of people were like, I don't know, I felt like there were some people that were frustrated, like, why aren't you asking him about this to us? Because all you're doing right now is likely reading fake Twitter accounts that are just spreading rumors.
Well, or like...
I mean, was there ever one person out there, like, credible source, that, like, firmly connected Bryan Harsin with the job that we should really follow up on? And there just wasn't.
The only things there were, and this happens every year, and I dealt with this with Chris Petersen every year. A job opens up and it just says, oh, he's on this list. Yahoo has him number 2 on the list. Well, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
Great. That means he's a commodity. And they might make a connection, be like, oh, Jim Sturk, Western guy. He's the AD at Missouri. They can pay Harsin more.
Yeah.
He did coach in Arkansas once. Okay. You can say that about a lot of guys. There was nothing substantive I had heard about him either talking to them or being interested or anything like that.
Yep.
So I wasn't going to report anything.
No.
Just let the rumor mill run. I don't care. I didn't ask him specifically about the job because the opportunity we had was, I think, less than 12 hours after Barry Odom got fired. And they were going to be coaching in a conference championship game.
LEO. It is it. LEO. It's the acronym. All the kids wear it on shirts and stuff like that. It's the motto that the Hoosiers adopted with their new football coach, Tom Allen, and it stands for...
Love each other?
Love each other.
Why didn't I just say that right away? I don't know why I drew this out.
I couldn't think of it either, but then the moment I read it, I was like, dang it.
You're like, this makes too much sense.
Yeah, it makes way too much sense. And Tom Allen's a very passionate coach. He preaches love. But
that's why that's why I wasn't asked specifically. This always happened with Chris Petersen. Sometimes people would ask him, hey, UCLA, that job's open. It's like, well, you ask him when he's about to be preparing for a game. I don't know what you expect him to say. I won't listen. I will listen. I'm going to stay here forever. This is my dream job. Guys have said all those things and taken other jobs.
Yeah.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Even if I asked him and Harsin didn't want to comment, then people would be like, well, why didn't you want to comment? Like, it's a no-win situation for anybody.
One thing about, and this is just a feeling too, that Brian's the type of guy, man, like, there are certain coaches out there, heck, some have worked here before as assistants and stuff like that, and they will put it out there, that somebody offered them, somebody didn't offer them, they passed on this opportunity hoping to get more over here or whatever. Brian's a very internal
close
guy.
to the vest?
Yes. Yeah. And
he is.
Gosh, man, if I was a big program, that would make him almost even more intriguing to me because you don't have to worry about some of those rumors and stuff like that. And
I mean, the only one I've been able to fully confirm that he ever interviewed with was Oregon, and that makes sense.
Yeah. Monetarily, opportunity, future, facilities.
Regional.
Everything. I mean, that checked a lot of the boxes. It basically checked every single box of why Chris Petersen went to UW.
Correct.
And
and they hired Billy Taggart, who is now
two jobs removed.
Yeah, 2 jobs removed from that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he already got fired. He didn't get fired at Oregon. Man, Florida State bailed Oregon out there, though.
Who they don't. Like, Oregon's got to be pretty happy with how everything worked out, all things considered.
That was like the Mariners getting Jay Buhner from the Yankees right there.
Jay Buhner!
Yeah.
They traded Jay Buhner!
Seinfeld.
Yep.
Yeah, but as we move to the end of this show, I want to be super threatened by some of the coaching hires throughout the Mountain West. For me, the biggest one was the one at UNLV, and that has more to do with the opportunity that is beginning to really show itself at that school with the NFL stadium, new facility, good recruiting area, just a general buzz around sports that's building in that town that has more to do with that than maybe the coach. But Bryan Harsin, you can see why he's trying to fight for more for his program, and the answers aren't easy. I mean, just throw that out there. They're not easy. I mean, I'm not just saying you just get money or you have money just to spend, because
then what the hell do you do with it?
Yeah.
You got to use it the right way.
Yeah, you got to use it the right way, and they got to get it. And there's challenges. I do not envy the people that have to figure this out, because they got their work cut out for them. They do.
I'm sure they're already working on it. But
I mean, some of them have already done great things in the past, and they've figured out in the past. But now it might be time to do it again. Which, unfair or not, it's go time.
I also think a certain men's basketball coach also is in a similar situation.
Yeah.
And people behind the scenes, I'm sure, have been trying to figure it out, but the gauntlet's kind of been thrown down.
If you're going to stay stagnant in your title of job, then you have to have things moving around you to continue to push your program forward. But going to be fun. It looks like we're headed down to Las Vegas Tuesday. Supposed to get Coach Petersen on Tuesday. A full fun week of coverage from Las Vegas. It should be great.
I think we're gonna try to do this down there too.
I hope so. We'll get approval from our show producer, Shanti Asale. Zanti Asale.
2 thumbs up apparently, so it looks like we can do it.
Yeah, but
that'd be fun.
I think it was
Take
also,
it on the road.
I think one of those thumbs was go ahead and do it next week down there. And one of them was okay, you're done with your show.
And also, we probably won't have to do it with me sitting in an airport in Dallas this year.
Hopefully not. Together, sounding good. We appreciate it, everybody. Covered a lot. Postseason game about a week and a half away. We look forward to more coverage next week on Jay and Dave Sports Bar from Las Vegas. We'll see you then, everybody, serving the Idaho sports community.